Silent Running from 1972. An eco-terrorist hippie in space! Theme song.
Cartoons Reviews! Cartoons Reviews!
If you want to watch Silent Running, check the link in the description below. So, Silent Running is by Douglas Trumbull, who's a legend in special effects starting in the late 60s and the 70s. He was involved in special effects for 2001, Andromeda Strain, Star Trek The Motion Picture, Blade Runner. He didn't do all of them, so for most of them, apparently, he did part of them, and it's like, oh, I don't want to work for you anymore, and left. He was also a really big proponent of high frame rate film. So, like Avatar 2, high frame rate, or Ang Lee. He was in on that stuff decades ago. Silent Running is his first directing gig, and really his most successful. He did a couple other movies and a few shorts. It came out in 72, and it's kind of like halfway special effects-wise, halfway between 2001 and Star Wars. In terms of story, it's closer to 2001 in that it's slower, it's more introspective. It's not perfect, though. So the setting is it's in the future, and plant life on Earth seems to be extinct. But they also, listening to like the radio or whatever, things seem to be okay. And they mention, people aren't hungry anymore.
On Earth, everywhere you go, the temperature is 75 degrees. Everything is the same. All the people are exactly the same.
What do you want, Lowell? I mean, there's hardly any more disease, there's no more poverty. Nobody's out of a job.
So they seem to have figured out how to feed people. The film is set on this sort of arboretum out in space. They have these geodesic domes with plants in them. And Bruce Dern is there taking care of them. He's sort of the hippie dude. He seems to care more about plants and these robots than he does his fellow crew members. The other crew members, they seem to be there mostly just riding around in these carts, goofing off and basically pissing off Dern by running over his plants.
What do you think you're doing?
So they get an order. They're like, we're destroy the domes, destroy the plants, take the ship back to Earth. It's going to be used for commercial purposes.
We have just received orders to abandon and nuclear destruct all the forests and return our ships to commercial service. I have received no explanation.
The other crew members are like, yeah, we're going home. Bruce Dern gives this rant. He's like, oh, the plants.
And that it calls back a time when there were flowers all over the earth, and there were valleys, and there were plains of tall green grass that you could lie down in, that you could go to sleep in.
So when they start blowing up the domes, he can't take it. So he kills the other crew members, and he fakes a malfunction so he can save the plants. Then the rest of the film is Dern kind of interacting with some robots and trying to avoid Earth figuring out that he disobeyed the orders. The film is pretty calm in most times. Dern sometimes gets over the top, but some ways it kind of reminds me of another of my favorite movies, Idaho Transfer. However, this film, it's really kind of dumb. There's lots of weird questions like, why does the Earth want to destroy the plants? They even say, no reason has been given for this. We're just following orders. Well, that's stupid. Then they say they want to use the engines for other commercial purposes. Fine, but why not just leave the domes floating out in space? Or put them on the moon? Why do they have to destroy them? Then there is kind of like the end. So spoilers for a movie that's over 50 years old. Dern takes the domes, pilots them behind Saturn to hide them. So in the dark, guess what? Plants need light. So they're in the dark, so they're not getting any light. And he's like, oh no, the plants are dying.
The sun. That's what it is. The sun. Did you hear what he just said? It's the sun.
Okay, that's just so stupid. Let's ignore the fact that even out by Saturn, the sunlight would be so dim, the plants would probably die anyway. He didn't think this guy who spent his whole life, devoted his life to plants, doesn't know that they need sunlight? It's so dumb. Aside from that, the real draw is the special effects. Apparently the Saturn stuff, Trumbull originally started to make that for 2001, but he couldn't get it done right in time. And they filmed it on this decommissioned military vehicle, this huge ship. So they have some great big sets. But the biggest draw is the robots. Because it's back in the early 70s, everything is models or practical effects. So you're watching it and you're like, how did they make these robots? They're not really humanoid. Well, the answer is they used amputees that didn't have legs and had them walk around on their hands. It's still kind of neat looking. Before I kind of like figured out how they did it, I was like, did they do what Battlestar Galactica did for the Daggett? Which, if you don't recall, the original Battlestar Galactica, the kid had this robotic dog, which turns out was a chimpanzee in a suit, in like a monster suit, which I don't think that's very humane. But no, they are people. So, is it worth watching it? Maybe, if you can get past the sort of dumb things. There is some interesting stuff here. It is pretty, the special effects are pretty neat to see that, like I said, that transitional period. I am going to give Silent Running 3 thumbs up. A weird sci-fi film. If you look past the stupid, you'll find something neat. Which is what you'll find if you like and subscribe. And hit that bell. Unless you're hating on me for my Morbius jokes, which... Morbius? How about more Morbius, huh?